Q&A, and it says, and I think this is really interesting as well, actually. If new, stronger policies and procedures have recently been implemented, do the SRA still fine for historic policies? Oh, it's disappeared. So somebody answered it as marked it as like, but basically the question is, would they still fine for the historic failings, even if changes have been made to the policies recently?
Short answer, yes. So for a lot of you know, for a lot of firms, you might say that the horse has already bolted if the old policies weren't correct. Um, but the obvious thing to say would be change and strengthen and improvement is better than not doing that. Um, we have seen an increased tendency for the investigators and auditors to go back and look at old documents and what should have been in place at the time. I think that's unfair, personally, because they're being judged on today's standards. When we're all more hyper aware of our obligations based on yesterday's document. I think that's an unfair approach, but we are reading between the lines. I think that approach tends to be reserved for the firms that have been difficult to pin down and have shown a pattern of not complying with their money laundering regs obligations.
Yeah, and I think we did see a change in the letter that was sent to firms, wasn't it, as well, around sending the policies and procedures that were written at the date that the letter was written. Because I think what firms tend to do is get the letter from the SRA, go into some like an internal panic mode, and then instruct people like yourself and other compliance firms and say, like, help me, I've got the letter. And so people were trying to implement better policies in the period between getting the letter and actually the visit happening. And so I think they did tweak the wording at some point fairly recently to say like the policies and procedures that were in place on the day that they sent the "we're coming, we're coming to visit" letter, the cheery one that everybody waits for. But I think again that's interesting. But I do think from the write-ups of the fines that I've seen as well, like I think it will be looked on favorably that you have obviously recognized that action needs to be taken, especially if that happened before the letter and that you've self-assessed or you've had an independent audit and that's made a recommendation. Um, because although there was a problem, you have taken the steps to rectify it before kind of they've told you to. And so I have seen positive comments that say, or I highlight the date, the time frame, so it'll say things like a partially compliant policy between X date and X date, and then a fully compliant policy from this time. And so I think they do take on board that there is that work kind of going on as well. So I think it's important if you do find something to rectify it as a priority as well, and yeah, make those
Yeah,
changes.
definitely. I mean, as part of the calculation for fines, if they get to that stage, then all of those kind of actions will fit into mitigation.
Mhm.
Because there's a complex formula for how the actual fine is calculated, but mitigation does come into it.
Yeah, we had another